Apologies, Phil. That's just the recording announcing.
Zoom meeting, stop my video, Alt+V button, escape, Zoom meeting.
Okay,
Meeting
Okay, Phil, Rob,
mute,
Phil,
audio
Phil,
settings, stop my video,
Rob,
video settings,
buddy.
button menu, enter, context menu, select the camera left parent, Alt+N to switch right parent.
We don't have Helen yet, Phil, so
Oh.
I'm not sure if we have
okay.
actually.
Oh, okay.
Participants panel,
Good.
0, more options, open chat tab, share screen, record on this reactions button, more meeting controls button, escape.
Okay, I have an issue. When you put on the recording, I don't know, there is a line across my screen. And I don't know how to turn it off.
Leave, Alt+Q button.
Okay, if you prefer, I could turn off the recording. We just won't have it to share with the community after the meeting.
I don't know, I mean,
Meeting information button, view button. Mute, currently on audio settings. Stop
Is
my
anyone
video,
else experiencing this interaction or?
okay,
Alt F, press escape or double.
I was able to turn off the line. There was an X on mine.
yeah, but since I am visually impaired, I can't use a mouse. And I'm just trying to see.
Control Shift M. Video settings, button menu, closed, open participants, more options for participants, escape, Zoom meeting. Alt F, this meeting is being
Okay, so insofar as I am concerned, I have a
has left the meeting.
strip in the center of the
Eleanor has
screen.
joined the meeting.
So I don't know if anybody has any suggestions on what to do.
Is there like an escape or exit short key that you know of that might just move the
I
screen?
mean, there's an escape key.
Escape. Escape.
All that does is,
Alt F. Control Shift M. Meeting information button, Control F. View button. Mute, currently unmuted. Alt, audio settings button menu, lift, stop my video, Alt+V button. Control F. Press escape or double.
okay, I don't know what to say. Okay, let's just proceed and I'll do the best I can.
Okay.
I just as soon have the recording on for the community.
Okay.
I am Philip Sclover. I am the vice chair of the MAAC. I am substituting for Heidi. I hope I can do a decent job with your cooperation.
Mhm.
I am visually impaired. I have asked Shana McCready to assist me.
Great. Mhm.
And this meeting will last approximately 2 hours. I expect it to be shorter since we do not have a particularly large agenda.
Okay.
The meeting will be will work as follows.
Captioner Karen has left the meeting.
First,
Captioner Karen has joined the meeting.
the MAAC members will be introduced. Then I will ask Shana if she will introduce the non-MAAC members and if they could state their names, affiliations, or particular interest. I think that would be helpful to the group. Then we will proceed to the agenda. There will be the formality of either accepting last month's minutes or not. Then we will have a short discussion of the MAAC's budget. Then we will move into the actual agenda. in which there will be 3 items. First, a report on streeteries. Second, a update or continuation of a status report on the adaptive bike program. And third, there will be a report by Buddy on a non-MAAC sponsored tour, which Buddy and I took last Friday, and on our own desire to just look at the Georgetown Street expansion, which was granted temporary approval by DDOT, and I gather is pending final approval. And that Buddy will describe our observations, and we will answer any questions. And then I guess the best way for each of the items, after there is the formal presentation, the MAAC members will have the initial opportunity to ask any questions or to make any statements. Then the floor will be open to the non-MAAC members to ask any questions or make any statements. Shana will recognize the individuals through a raise of hand. Is there any questions on how the meeting will be conducted? I didn't think I was that good. Then let's proceed to the meeting itself. Do I hear a motion from a MAAC member? Oh, no, first, is there any discussion on last month's minutes? Do I hear any? Do I hear a motion from anyone that the meeting,
I move
that
to
any
approve
MAAC member that
the next meeting
the
minutes.
minutes be accepted?
Mr. Chairman, Buddy Moore, I move that the minutes from the previous meeting be accepted.
Do I hear a second?
I think that Rob has seconded. You look like you nodded your head, right?
Oh, okay, fine. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
I,
Opposed?
Aye.
Excuse me, one opposed?
no, that was an,
Opposed, Phil. Everyone is in agreement.
Okay, terrific. The minutes are now accepted. Oh, I forgot what the order. Let's just backtrack and
Okay.
let's introduce ourselves. I am Philip Sclover, the MAAC's vice chair. I am an attorney by training, specializing in employment law.
Okay.
I now do mediations of employment matters, as well as I am a potter making things from mud. Buddy, you want to introduce yourself?
Buddy, you're on mute.
am I okay now?
Yes, yes,
Can
you're
you-
fine.
Okay, Buddy Moore, a member of the MAAC. I am a volunteer with the Bernice Fontenot Senior Wellness Center.
Okay, Rob, you want to introduce yourself?
Rob Dooley, MAAC member.
Helen, you want to introduce yourself? I don't think I cannot hear you. I don't know if the others can or not.
Your voice is a little distorted. This might be a connection issue.
We can see you, Helen, but we can't hear you.
Okay, I will
Yeah.
introduce you.
Yeah,
Helen
gotcha.
Ergelhardt is our very able treasurer.
Right. Okay, great.
And I think that is all the mock members present, or at least that.
Mhm.
Okay. Shayna, can you go around and ask the non-mock members to introduce themselves?
Mhm.
Sure. Caesar, you want to go first?
Yes, good evening. I am Cesar Barreto. I'm the Americans with Disabilities Act coordinator with DDOT.
Okay. Next on my list, I have Chelsea Cerizzo. Do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. I'm actually a reporter with Axios. I got an email that this was a public meeting and I wanted to listen in. I've reported on street areas before and I was interested in hearing about the report.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Great.
Mhm.
Thank you. And then next I have Heather Foote. Heather, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
So I serve on the Pedestrian Advisory Council, the sister to the MAAC, and also recently I do older adult transportation work, and have been coordinating with Charlie Wilson at DDOT to do outreach in Ward 7 and 8, the wellness centers, senior wellness centers, on the summer safety campaign that I'm very enthusiastic about.
Awesome. Thank you, Heather. Next up, I see Kim Vaca from DDOT.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kimberly Vaca. I am a transportation planner and the streetery coordinator for DDOT.
Awesome. Next, I see Nana Bailey Thomas.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nana Bailey Thomas, and I am the Chief Transportation Equity and Inclusion Officer for the District Department of Transportation. Before we move on to the next person, I did want to introduce Zachary Smith. Zachary is our new accessibility and equity program analyst. And so he will be taking over for the position that Vivian had. So I did want to just introduce him if that's appropriate.
Yes, it is, and welcome.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sklover, Chairperson Sklover, this evening.
Zachary, you're last on my list. Did you want to say anything, or do you feel like Nana got it down?
Oh, sure. I'll just give a little bit of background about myself. So I am a longtime transportation advocate, specifically on reducing barriers to accessing transportation networks. I most immediately come from the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, where I help staff the board members to AMATA. And prior to that, I was with the American Public Transportation Association, where I did some work on a grant with the Federal Transit Administration on connecting seniors and folks with disabilities to healthcare. So
super welcome then.
Thank you. Good to meet you all, and I look forward to my involvement with the MAAC committee.
Okay,
Oh, great.
Great, yeah, fantastic.
And I think Shanna left temporarily.
Okay.
That is
Shana?
that is correct. We lost Shayna for a second here.
Okay.
Okay. Caesar, can you take over and say who is the next person on the screen?
The next person on the screen is the captioner, which is doing the transcript. And we pretty much got everybody.
Okay, thank you. Before we proceed, is Helen still on? Are you still not audible? No, I can barely hear you. Okay. Okay, so since you were scheduled to provide a mock budget update, I'm going to suggest that we postpone that until our October meeting. I see no choice in that. So unless during this meeting, someone can assist Helen in fixing the issue. But so let's just proceed to the new business and go to the first item, which is an update and discussion of the Streeteries program. Who is the spokesperson from DDOT on that?
This is Caesar. That will be Kimberly Baca. She's in attendance.
Okay, well, welcome, Kimberly. Could you start basically by defining what is a streetery?
Sure. Yes. So streetery is a new term here in the District of Columbia. It is an outdoor dining area or a food establishment that sits in public space.
Okay, so what we have, for example, with the Georgetown sidewalk expansion, which we will all hear about subsequently from Buddy, that is actually under the umbrella of a streetery. Is that correct?
Partially, yes.
Could you amplify that? Partially yes and partially no.
Yes, so they applied for a sidewalk extension that extended the sidewalk into the parking lane. After or separately tied to that is the street permit, which permitted them to have outdoor dining in the newly extended sidewalk area. It is a streetery, but it is also a sidewalk extension.
I got you. Okay. Okay, the floor is all yours.
Okay, I will share my screen. I put together a PowerPoint presentation for everyone. So let's see. Oh, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay. Shayna.
Bill, I lost my connection on my desktop. I can't get back in. So I know I'm on my personal account. I no longer have host abilities. So I'm gonna really rely on do you turn that functionality back on for us?
Check now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kimberly, can you check now?
Okay, I got it to work.
Okay, there you are.
So let's turn this to presentation mode. Okay. And everyone, we don't want to start there. Can everyone see the presentation?
We can see your presentation mode rather than the
you're
other.
in presentation mode. And so you may want to make it bigger so that everyone can see it.
Yeah. If you can enlarge it, yes. If not, don't worry about it.
Hello.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Hello, sorry to interrupt. The auto captioning needs to be turned on.
Let me try something else.
The auto captioning is interfering with the captions.
Okay, Is this better?
A little, but that's okay. If for me, vision wise, if you can talk me through it, that'll be fine.
Okay. Okay.
Excuse me 1 second, Rob. You mentioned you can see the captions or not?
Oh, there you are. That's good.
Rob, can you see the captions?
That's good. That's great for me, buddy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are we all set?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone. As I mentioned, I am the Streetery Coordinator for DDOT. I want to go over today a brief overview of our temporary streetery guidelines, how they were created as part of the COVID-19 public health emergency, the current review process that we allow food establishments to go through, mechanisms that we currently have for streeteries, the results of a streetery survey we did at the end of 2020 and early 2021 about the streetery program, and then just a brief overview of what we're preliminarily proposing as part of the permanent streetery program moving forward. So 5 topics. So the current streetery program was developed in June 2020 as a response to the COVID-19 public health emergency. Restaurants and many other types of businesses were negatively impacted by the public health emergency in that they had indoor restrictions in terms of capacity. So to mitigate the impacts of the reduced indoor dining capacity, we developed the Streetery program, which allows restaurants to expand outdoor dining into the public right of way, which includes sidewalks, parking lanes, travel lanes, alleys, and plazas. So, right, that's our definition of a streetery. As of September of 2021, we have over 325 streeteries spread throughout the district. Most are west of the river. We have only about 1 or 2 east of the river. This map is quite small, but I'm happy to provide an interactive map for those who are interested. But we have hundreds of streeteries in DC. To the right, you can see 2 examples of a streetery. In the northern right picture, we have a streetery on 14th Street where you can see outdoor dining on both the sidewalk and in the parking lane with people dining. And then in the bottom right-hand picture, this is near Nats Park. On the roadway there, you can see people dining in the roadway surrounded by barriers.
Hello, I'm sorry to interrupt again. I'm so sorry, but the automated capsules are still on. They need to be turned off for the capsules to work.
What
I see the capsules, but apparently, can Karen, the captionist, confirm when they're off?
Sorry, can you repeat what needs to?
This is a Zoom issue. It's not you. You're
Jane,
doing.
whoever's hosting the meeting needs to be.
I can't turn it off anymore. Are you able to do that?
I am trying to find the auto caption, but it's not putting it that way. It just says close full transcript, but I don't see the captions like auto captions. So I do apologize.
Try closing CC that.
Chaina?
Yeah.
I cannot hear you. I apologize.
I'm not speaking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are we good to continue?
I still see the caption. Well, I'm not sure why they're not turning off. Unfortunately, the Zoom app is completely frozen, so I am now resorted to my mobile phone. So
okay.
Yeah, because the note that, I'm sorry, this is Nana Bailey Thomas from DDOT, and I see where it says live transcription, closed captioning is being enabled.
Yeah.
Okay.
We need to get that turned off. Looks like, but I can't. Not working.
I believe I did this just now. I hope I got it. No,
No.
it's still doing auto captions. Meeting. Try there, and should be the right there. There's one that says closed captioning. That's the one that I enabled, but it's doing it for me, not for the entire team.
So where are we?
Yeah, Rob, I don't know if we can get these turned off unless we end the meeting.
I can, is it helpful for me to send this to the presentation to?
No, it would happen regardless of who's speaking.
Okay.
It's some Zoom functionality that's been turned on that we can't seem to get off. All right, is it? Okay. Do you want to try again? I think I just tried something.
Okay. Do you want me to redo this slide?
No, I think it's working now, but yeah, they're off, right, Rob? Do you see them? I think we're good. I'm not hearing from Rob, but I don't see any captions, so I'm going to say that we're good.
Okay, great.
Okay. Should I redo this slide or would you like me to move to the next one?
I'll to the next one. Yeah.
Okay. Oops, there we go. Okay, so the streetery guidelines. The streetery guidelines as they exist today cover a variety of topics, including who can apply, so applicability, the design requirements, including barriers, buffers, the type of furniture, tents and heaters, a few example site plans to show what we're looking for from applicants, the registration process, public space permitting and other types of permitting, insurance needs, information about snow events and emergencies, and then frequently asked questions. And on the left, you can see a picture of the cover titled Reimagining Outdoor Space for Restaurants, Draft Guidelines for Expanded and New Outdoor Seating. So these guidelines are what help us at DDOT inform applicants of what is possible and what currently guide the temporary streetery program. Included in the guidelines are pictures such as the diagram on your left, which shows an example site plan. So the guidelines include dimensions of all public space elements. So for example, we require a 6-foot pedestrian pathway for all streeteries and a 4-foot buffer between where people are dining and where people are walking. We started off at the beginning of this program actually having public health dimension requirements, such as the 6-foot spacing that was needed between tables. That was set to help prevent the spread of the COVID-19 virus, but we no longer require that requirement now that the public health emergency has been changed over the several year and a half since this program started. We do have a seating capacity though, which is 15 square foot per seat, which aligns with our sidewalk cafe program that's existed for a long time. We also include transportation safety elements such as the barrier type and location and heights of structures, as well as information about ADA accessibility and ADA and platforms. So for streeteries that are on the street, we require that applicants provide an ADA ramp or platform that's at grade with the sidewalk. As you can see here on the example site plan to the left, an ADA ramp is shown from the 6-foot pedestrian clear path to the outdoor dining area. You can also see the several barriers that completely surround the streetery in the parking lane. These are, depending on the type of roadway, anywhere from a jersey barrier, which are the heavier concrete or water-filled barriers you see probably around the district, or it can be in the form of fencing or planters or some other type of of barrier depending on the type of roadway, whether it's an arterial or a local street. For structures, we have requirements that we added to the guidelines in February of this year. When we originally created these guidelines, we did not expect this program to last till today. I don't think any of us thought that COVID-19 would be around for this long. So we had to revise and constantly update and reassess our guidelines based on the weather conditions and then what we were experiencing working with restaurants. So as the winter months came along, we noticed that many of these restaurants were starting to build structures in the public right of way outside of our existing permitting process. So we developed guidelines to try and basically stop illegal structures from being built and give them a way to move forward with weatherizing their outdoor dining areas. So our guidelines allow structures in the public right of way. However, barriers that are solid have to be between 36 inches and 42 inches in height. And anything above 42 inches can either be 50% open or has to be 100% transparent, such as a plexiglass wall. The max height of these structures cannot exceed 96 inches. And then they should also be designed to be removable or retractable. So in the two pictures shown to the right of your screen, you'll see two different examples of types of structures that we would permit. In the top picture, you'll see that they have a 42-inch like steel metal barrier, and above that they have a 54-inch plexiglass wall, which is 100% transparent, so drivers and pedestrians can see through the streetery, and it does not exceed 96 inches in height. Bottom right picture, you'll see another 96-inch height streetery, but the dimensions are a little different. They have a 30-inch barrier on the bottom, and then a see-through, a more open version of a structure on the top. So here, I also wanted to show some examples of what not to do or issues that we've run through as the program has developed. So a few things to note are on the left picture, you'll see this is an example of a streetery that's in Georgetown on Water Street Northwest. This is a picture of fencing that has actually been drilled into the roadway. We do not allow businesses, food establishments, anyone to drill into the roadway. That is a big no-no. So you need to figure out a different way to stabilize your structure besides drilling into public space. On the right-hand side, the right picture, you'll see a streetery on the sidewalk. And there are several elements on the sidewalk of the streetery that are located within the 6-foot pedestrian path, which is not okay. You need to make sure that this 6-foot pedestrian path is cleared so we can have a means of access for people walking on the sidewalk. And then you'll also note that the 4-foot buffer that I had discussed on earlier slides is not being provided between the 6-foot pedestrian path and where people are supposed to be dining. So these are two examples of streeteries that are not in compliance with our guidelines. Here's another bad example of a streetery. This is on Barracks Row on 8th Street Southeast. That's on the sidewalk. On this diagram is placed several elements that are illegal. So on the right-hand side of the picture are dining spaces that are on the sidewalk. And even within the 6-foot pedestrian path, there are planters and barriers that there's no way people can easily access the sidewalk and walk past these streeteries. There are many elements that are within the way of the pedestrian clear path and the 4-foot buffer. So all of these elements would need to be removed. So what is our streetery process? Depending on where you're placing your streetery, whether it's on the sidewalk, in the parking lane, if you're closing down a travel lane even, we have various different permitting processes. So on the screen is a chart showing the public space use, whether that's an existing sidewalk cafe, that wants to expand their space, a new sidewalk cafe, a parklet, a streetery in the travel lane, or plazas and alleys. These are all required to fill out a Google form online, which is linked in the Streetery guidelines, and are required to submit a Streetery permit in TOPS for a public space permit. The only type of public space Streetery that doesn't need a public space permit are those that already have a permitted sidewalk cafe. So if you are proposing to allow outdoor dining on the sidewalk, you need to submit a temporary sidewalk table service permit in TOPS. If you wanted to have a Streetery in the parking lane, you'll need to submit a parklet permit in TOPS. And then if you wanted a Streetery in the travel lane or plazas and alleys, you would need to submit an other special events permit in TOPS. Once those are submitted, we at DDOT and others, such as with ABRA or DCRA, will review your proposal and let you know if we have any concerns, request any modifications, or can approve your permit. We made this process, it's a new process in COVID-19, to be quick, easy, and affordable. So this permit is free, and it's typically reviewed within 72 hours of being assigned to us at DDOT and the reviewers. For a complete application, applicants need to show several different documents. First is proof of completing the expanded outdoor dining and Streetery registration form. That's a simple Google Doc that has your contact information and what you're proposing to do in public space. We need a copy of the certificate of occupancy for the food establishment to verify that you are indeed a business and a food establishment that is eligible for the program, and a copy of the business license. We need a proof of insurance, although that has basically been waived as part of the temporary program due to significant pushback from the community on the insurance requirements set by the Office of Risk Management. We also need a site plan showing the proposed outdoor dining area with dimensions and drawn to scale. This does not need to be certified by a architect or engineer. We've had food establishments draw it on the back of their menus, to be quite honest with you. It's very flexible in terms of the ability for food establishments to draw these public space areas, but we do need to see dimensions of where you're proposing outdoor dining, and then the number of chairs and where the tables are located. If you plan to have outdoor dining in front of an adjacent business, adjacent building, or condo association, we will need a letter of support from those entities. And if you are proposing to extend into a resident-only parking lanes, or like RPP parking, or a loading zone, you will need a letter of support from an ANC commissioner. So those are two types of community outreach that needs to occur if you are proposing either scenario. Otherwise, you won't need a letter of support. So enforcement, there are two ways to get in, to basically notify district government that there's an enforcement need for a Streetery. The first is submitting a 311 notice through our call center. That'll notify our public space inspection branch, and then also emailing ABRA at abra.enforcement@dc.gov. ABRA inspects Streeteries for licensing inconsistencies and non-compliancy, and DDOT and DCRA will inspect Streeteries for any structural or public space issues and concerns. Fines and penalties can occur based on the severity of the non-compliance issue and the number of times that this issue has occurred, from warnings to citations to removal or revoking the Streetery permit to stop work orders, depending on if they're actually constructing something. So based on the Streetery program, this program has been in existence for over a year now. Have about a few months into the program in November of 2020, we decided we wanted to hear from the business community on how this program has benefited or not benefited their business. We're trying to understand, as this program evolves, what we need to do to make it better, to address any community concerns that are occurring, because it was a brand new program. We'd never done anything like this before. So we had 97 businesses that responded to, or entities that responded to the survey. And we noticed that, so on the left-hand side of the screen, there's a chart, pie chart that shows the types of applicants that submitted a streetery program permit as part of the temporary program. The majority of applicants included individual restaurants, so 43% of our applicants were individual businesses applying on their own behalf. 33% were by Main Street organizations such as District Bridges, if you're familiar. That is a common organization that participated in our program, as well as a business improvement district or a BID. That was 22%. And then 3% were actually advisory neighborhood commissions. So we had several different organizations apply for the streetery program, but the majority of them were from individual businesses. We also asked restaurants, did this program increase or decrease your revenue compared to not having a streetery during COVID? And 87% of businesses stated that the streetery program increased their business revenue, with 6% stating no noticeable change and 2% stating that it decreased their business revenue. Overall, there was a 34% average increase in business revenue for the businesses that participated in our streetery survey. So what we learned essentially is that this was a huge economic generator for businesses who were struggling during the COVID-19 pandemic, mostly because they could not operate indoor dining or they had significantly reduced indoor dining capacity during COVID-19. So the outdoor dining areas were a big help and assistance for recouping some of that lost revenue. So we saw, based on the business survey, and the Office of Planning also did a survey to residents, district residents, that showed overwhelming support for a program, a permanent streetery program, and to maintain the program through the public health emergency. Other strong factors that we asked businesses were about their ability to retain, rehire, or expand their number of staff. And 78% of respondents stated they were able to do so with an average of 7 employees per business. We noticed also 100% increase in total seating capacity compared to what would be allowed under the phase 2 50% indoor dining capacity restrictions that occurred during COVID-19, with 89% of businesses interested in making the streetery program permanent. So really, no matter what question we ended up asking, there was a positive indicator as part of those surveys. We also were interested just in understanding how much does it cost to build a streetery? Is this an enormous cost for businesses? And basically, can they participate? And we noticed about an average cost for materials about $8,200, but that can widely vary. If you have a more extensive streetery that has like HVAC units in it and built extensively, I think the most popular version of that would be the streetery like Diplomat. Those can cost tens of thousands of dollars. But if you simply put out, some fencing, some tables and chairs, those can be on the low end. We also wanted to understand from businesses, are they noticing a need for indoor dining versus outdoor dining or vice versa? And we saw that based on what the businesses were reporting, that there was a strong preference for outdoor dining, with 69% of their customers stating that they had a strong preference to 16% saying they had a slight preference for outdoor dining. So we expect in COVID especially, but also post-COVID, that clientele's the customer base for restaurants will want to continue to eat in the outdoor areas. So what are next steps? Right now, the temporary program is set to expire on February 28th of next year, so 2022, with Mayor Bowser announcing earlier this year support for a permanent streetery program. So right now, DDOT is working on the creation of a permanent program and currently coordinating with our partner district agencies and some community stakeholders such as yourself for what this program should look like, where streeteries should go, any design requirements, and other factors that we should be including in the program. Something that currently already exists that you may be familiar with, going back to 2015, is our Parklet program at DDOT. These basically allow community organizations to convert on-street parking spaces to public parks. As you can see in the picture on the right-hand side of this screen, this is an example of a parklet, right? It's outdoor seating, it's park space, it's public space. This program, though, did not support outdoor dining for individual businesses. We did not allow the privatization of these parklet areas prior to the Streetery program that started in 2020. So the Streetery program changed that, and the permanent Streetery program will also change that, and that food establishments will be allowed to convert on-street parking spaces to areas for outdoor dining. So for the Streetery program, we're proposing to modify the types of streeteries that are allowed and where they're permitted to be located. So our streetery definition stays the same and continues to stay the same, right? It's outdoor dining in public space. It's repurposing, activating, and expanding public space in an innovative way, creating space for people and patrons of food establishments. We are proposing only 3 types of streeteries for a permanent program versus the 5 that I had talked about before. So the 3 that we're proposing to move forward, we're calling, the first is a streetery for individual business, which is expanded outdoor dining within the parking lane adjacent to an individual food establishment. So what is a food establishment? That can include restaurants, distilleries, breweries, wineries, grocery stores, fast food establishments, prepared food shops, and theaters. This 100% aligns with sidewalk cafes. So any entity that's eligible for a sidewalk cafe would also be eligible for a streetery. The second type of streetery is a streetery for multiple businesses. So this is the same concept, expanded outdoor dining within the parking lane, but it's adjacent to multiple food establishments along a street block. So the difference between the first type, individual business, and the second type, multiple business, is that the first type is only for 1 food establishment, and the second could be for 2, 3, 4, 5, an entire block, similar to what the type of streeteries that are in like Adams Morgan, for example, on 18th Street. And the third streetery is streetery alleys. So that's expanded outdoor dining within an alley network adjacent to 1 or multiple food establishments. In the diagram to the right-hand side on the screen, this showcases the 3 different types of streeteries. So the first is a streetery for individual business. So the streetery area with the 2 tables and chairs and the barriers are aligning with the food establishment to the right. The adjacent businesses do not have a streetery. The next diagram showcases multiple food establishments, and the streetery goes for the extension of all 3 food establishments on that block. And the last diagram shows a streetery alley, which is the dining adjacent to the food establishments with a 20-foot fire lane in the alley. So an example of that might be the streeteries that are in Blagden Alley, for example, such as near Tiger Fork or Lost and Found. That's probably our most popular alley streetery in the district. So what are the biggest changes from the temporary program? As I mentioned, we're proposing to modify the types of streeteries. We're reducing the locations. The locations that aren't eligible in the permanent program will be travel lane streeteries. So we will not be closing down roadways for streeteries, as well as plazas. So those will not be eligible for streeteries. We also are including a stipulation that streeteries must operate as public space outside of when a business's hours of operation are. So for example, if you're a business owner and you operate your streetery in business from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., that is the time that you're eligible to use that space for outdoor dining outside of those operations. So at 7:01, that space then converts to public space. The businesses will not be able to rope off those areas and continue to privatize them, be open to the public. In addition, the list of eligible locations are reduced to avoid conflicts on the street curb. So we've been very flexible with where we're allowing temporary streeteries in the district. And as part of the permanent program, we will not continue to be as flexible. So for example, right now we allow streeteries in loading zones. That will no longer occur. That's just what probably the cleanest example. Another would be our rush hour restricted parking areas. So those areas that have parking at some points of the day, and then during rush hour, they convert to a travel lane, those will no longer be eligible for a streetery as part of the permanent program. We're also proposing to change the review process. So as I mentioned earlier, our review process is administrative, and we're reviewing it within approximately 72 hours. The permanent program will involve a longer review, likely 2 to 3 months, because it will need to be approved by the Public Space Committee. So this is a public hearing process. Members of the public will be able to go and testify, put in comments, send in comments to the Public Space Committee, who will ultimately decide whether a streetery will be approved. It's identical process to the Sidewalk Cafe program that we have currently. We're also not going to allow winterized structures, so any elements above 42 inches will have to go. No more enclosed spaces in public space. We'll allow rooftops as part of this program, but they will need to be supported by posts that cannot exceed 10 inches in width. So the winterization element will be removed. We are also proposing public space rental fees. Right now, the temporary program is free. And we will be charging a public space rental fee part of the permanent program, as well as barrier rental fees for the Jersey barriers that we've been delivering for businesses for free as well.
Okay,
And
is that,
the end of the presentation.
okay. Can we go off screen share?
Sure.
Give back a left parent DDOT right parent left parent G/right parent to stop screen share.
Okay, let's open it up for questions from my colleague MAAC members. Any member who wishes to make a statement or ask a question?
This is Caesar using assign as support. We got Rob Dooling with his hand raised.
Rob?
Hello, Kim. Thank you so much for that informative presentation. Thank you. Yes, that's the We program and overall Mayor Bowser's push to reimagine public space during the pandemic is incredibly exciting for accessibility, improving walkability for all DC residents, especially people with disabilities, and I appreciate so much what you're doing with this. So thank you for that. And thank you to all of the DDOT staff who I know have been working so hard to make this program possible. We know it's very unorthodox, but I love it and I want to see more of it as much as possible, especially east of the river and in Ward 6 where I live. I know that a preponderance of the streeteries have been in Wards 2 and 3, where the business owners, the establishment owners have more political connections, more relations with DDOT staff, more wherewithal, more resources. It is easier for them to get through the application process. I know many DDOT employees like Emma Blondin have been working hard to make that more possible in areas like Hit Street. And I want to thank you for that too. And I want to see more of it. I posted a Washington Post article in the chat at this meeting about as of February 2021, there were only two streeteries east of the river. I hope we can improve that later. So Kim, I really appreciate what you said about the flexibility and the insurance requirements, and I hope to see more of that flexibility in the future. I know we can do that and be accessible and good with the enforcement on sidewalk clearance. I know we could do that at the same time. I know we have spent so many decades and so much of our resources investing in the status quo of 2, 4, 6, 8 lanes of car traffic going through some of our busiest commercial neighborhoods, and reimagining our public space is a huge step forward in accessibility from that. So hope to see more of that. Thank you. I do also want to keep in mind that it's not always easy for many small businesses, like you said, to be able to go through this process. So I appreciate any help to go over in that regard. Sorry if I'm rambling, but another article I want to share is that Greater Washington article. I'll also post in the chat about how the Adams Morgan Business Improvement District had virtually unanimous support from the businesses, the community, the AZ, and so on, for using more of their traffic lanes and more of their private parking spaces for streetways and pedestrian space, but it did not happen because executive branch was opposed. And specifically, DC Homeland Security and Emergency Management has that attached liability culture that can be very difficult to overcome. And that we think we need police cars at every intersection in terms of making sure that the pedestrian only space is safe. So I appreciate any progress we can make in overcoming that. Thank you. I do want to ask one question about the proposed permanent delivery program. You say that you want to have fees for the rental of public space, which seems like it will be harder for the smaller businesses to do that.
That's a good question, and something we've been discussing internally quite a bit, because we recognize a few things. So our sidewalk cafe program has public space rental fees, right, of $5 per square foot for unenclosed sidewalk cafes and $10 per square foot for enclosed sidewalk cafes that have existed since the program began in the 2000s. And our Parklet program, which I briefly touched upon, that program, which involves converting on-street parking spaces to pop-up parks, that fee is basically the annual meter fee. So what it would cost for someone to park their car there 365 days a year. And we calculated that out, and that calculates out to about $30,000 a year. And which is why we were told from all community organizations that we had 5 parklets within the past 6 years of that program because it was such a huge barrier for entry. And we do not want to do that as part of the Streetery program. I think we saw from the surveys, interacting with the community of residents who love it. And, not everyone loves the Streetery program, but most that we've talked to do. And then the business community that have told us they need this to survive post-COVID. That we don't want this to be a cost barrier for them, but recognizing that this is privatizing public space, right? They're using this space specifically for their business, and we also don't want to surpass the sidewalk cafe program so that people who want outdoor dining look at the sidewalk cafe program, say, oh, that's $10 per square foot. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go into the roadway and do a streetery because it's free, or because it's less than that. And so, the curb space is vital. We rely on the curb for bike lanes, for transit lanes, for parking is a public use, although we recognize it's not our top use, but loading zones, pickup drop-off zones. And so streeteries are one of many uses in this area. And so we're trying to figure out, where is that point? In addition, we've been doing a lot of research on how much restaurants have been making from this program, and recognizing that they are making a significant amount of money per seat from streeteries. And so it is a revenue generator. That's what we want. We get tax benefits from that. But, trying to find that balance between all those different factors.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions from a MAAC member?
Yeah. Phil, if I can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to thank the presenter, Kim, for such a clear, understandable presentation. I really learned a lot from her presentation. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, I have a question. Have there been any reoccurring disability issues raised by various disabled communities with which you can share with us?
Yes, I think that's the weakest part of our program has been the enforcement arm, unfortunately. This program was developed within like 3 weeks and has been revised. That was in June of 2020 and has been revised since then to accommodate for winter structures, and a lot of businesses unfortunately have put out streeteries and built structures that are not compliant with our guidelines and don't even have the permits to support it. I've probably sent in over 100 enforcement tickets myself as I go about my daily life and see streeteries occupying public space, not providing that 6-foot pedestrian clear path, not providing an ADA ramp, not providing a platform that's at grade with the sidewalk. And because of the nature of this program is so temporary, every 3 months it would be extended. We didn't know when this temporary program would end. The mayor really wants this program to stay around. I think there's been we've had to waive a lot of our we've had to be very flexible with a lot of our regulations to facilitate this program. And that's something we are being very conscious of for a permanent program, in that we are not going to be grandfathering in any existing streeteries today. Just because they're out there, they will not maintain. All businesses will need to reapply for a new public space permit. And if they do not, their structure needs to be removed. And I think this new permanent program will have a lot more teeth and ability to enforce these new guidelines and permits, because it is permanent. It's not, a makeshift program that we put together, to try and facilitate this outdoor dining. So yes, we've had issues and we've sent out inspectors and they've tried to, enforce them and fix them. And some have come back multiple times to the same establishments, unfortunately. And it's something that we're trying to approach from ABRA's angle, from DCRA's angle, and from DDOT's angle, because we all have a part in enforcing these areas.
Okay, so I guess that looking toward the future, any eating establishment must come before the public and justify their request for a permanent eatery and subject their request to public scrutiny. Is that true?
Yes, that is true.
Okay, so I guess in that sense that the onus is going to be on the various disability communities to step up and make sure that they are heard. Thank you very much.
I think what we'd like to do is incorporate all ideas that you have into these guidelines that we will be reviewing permits, the permanent permits too.
Okay,
that they're built, so they're built to support this community. I think
guidelines to the MAAC.
They are not 100% ready to share yet in its current form. We're still coordinating with DCRA, Office of Risk Management, and a few others before we can send it to the public, but we can send it to the MAAC for review. I think one of the biggest, I think we're going to be removing a lot of the obstacles for the permanent program, and that the Sidewalk Cafe program, there's most of the issues have been on the sidewalk. The temporary sidewalk streetery program will not exist. So it'll go back to the permanent Sidewalk Cafe program. And then for those that are in the street, we will not be allowing streeteries to just exist on the asphalt. They will all need to be built with a platform that's at grade with the sidewalk. So no ADA ramps will be needed because there will be required to have a platform. So we're
Okay.
trying to build these streeteries to be accessible for the permanent program.
Thank you. Can we open up the questioning?
This
to
is-
the
this is Caesar.
non-MAAC members?
Yeah, this is Caesar. Rob has his hand up.
And Heather has a question.
Yes, one more suggestion before we go to members of the public is that to help make sure the sidewalk is as accessible as possible, these streetways are as pedestrian friendly as possible, especially for people with disabilities. My suggestion is to structure the fees to encourage more use of driveway lanes, what will be private parking spaces or whatnot, using more of the space inside the street, not the sidewalk, especially if a space would be a bus lane or a bike lane or some other space, then I completely understand the public space rental fee for that. But in situations where a space will be a residential parking space, I hope we can make that free for the business to use, because using space for a restaurant and pushing that off the sidewalk would be much more beneficial than storage of private vehicles. That's my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the non-MAAC audience?
Yes, you had Heather Foote on the phone having a discussion and question. Mr. Foote, Ms. Foote?
Thank you. Kimberly, thank you for the presentation. I second what Buddy said, that it was very informative and in great detail. I have a couple questions. One is, who is responsible for enforcement, and what are the mechanisms that you foresee to improve enforcement? The second question is really more a comment. I live a block and a half from 18th and Columbia, and as Cesar knows well, I had major concerns last June of 2020 in how the test there was opened out. I just wanted to confirm what Rita has said from Office of Planning, Rita Abu Samra, that the streeteries will not coincide with the full closure of streets, meaning those 2 blocks of 18th Street, and that right now it's incredibly congested. You can't ride your bike down 18th Street. It's just a terrible situation. So I'm going to be interested in monitoring how the guidelines are specifically going to affect 18th Street south of Columbia Road. Thank you.
Yeah, to address the last question, like I mentioned, we will not be allowing applicants to apply to close travel lanes for outdoor dining. I think there is part of the streetery program. There are other mechanisms that community organizations can go through to close down a street. We have block parties. We are now getting back into open streets, which I would like to make a plug for if I can later. But as part of the streetery program, we're only allowing outdoor dining in the parking lane and in alleys. Those are the two areas. In terms of enforcement, it depends on what the concern is, what the non-compliance issue is. So if it has to do with licensing, ABRA would be the agency who steps in. If it has to do with building integrity and the structure of the streetery, that would be DCRA. And if it has to do with like public space dimensions, anything with like seating capacity, or misusing our public space in any way, that would be DDOT. So there's a few different agencies that can step in and either revoke their licensing or their permit, depending on what the problem is.
Okay, let's move on. Anybody else who has a question or a point to raise? If not, we'll move to the next presenter.
This is Caesar, Mr. Dooling.
Yes, just one more question. In the permanent program, you said there will be no winterization structures, but why not allow winterization structures?
We are not allowing those because of safety concerns. When you are enclosing public space, one, it feels more like private space, just from an aesthetic point of view. It doesn't necessarily read as public space. The second thing is line of sight, which is the more important issue and concern. When you enclose these spaces, it's incredibly dangerous if you're adjacent to crosswalks, because it blocks line of sight from drivers to where pedestrians are standing, which I've seen happen countless times throughout the district, to be honest with you, as part of the streetery program for these temporary structures, as well as just drivers' ability to not see important street signage or signals that are along the curb or in front of them as they're driving. So we need, that's why the 42 inches is the cap for barriers, because anything above that could potentially be a safety concern.
Okay, I thank you very much. We need to move on to the next presenter on the issue of accessible bikes. Who is the presenter for that?
This is Caesar. Before we move on, I would like to acknowledge the three new participants to the meeting, Mr. Aaron Golbeck, Mr. Gerald Barnes, and Mr. Christian Blink from WMATA.
Welcome. Now, I think that Mr. Goldmark is a presenter.
Mr. Golbeck is a presenter for the next topic, sir. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for coming, and you have the floor.
All right. Well, good evening, friends. My name is Aaron Goldbeck. I presented to this group on March the 10th on this topic. I'm here to provide an update and to ask for some assistance, perhaps. So we are talking about the adaptive bike program. We got a generous allocation in the mayor's budget, $250,000 that we are going to put out as a grant opportunity. So we're looking for a nonprofit partner to design and implement a adaptive bike program out of the DDOT facility at Union Station. I'll show you a picture of that in just a moment so you're familiar, and I'll show you on the map as well, so you know exactly the location that we're gonna provide. But DDOT has a bike facility at Union Station. Historically, it's been used for bicycle parking for commuters. These days it has a vacant space, so we think that's a great brick and mortar location we can provide for free to a nonprofit partner. And the nonprofit partner we are looking for is to, as I said, develop and implement a adaptive bike share program. So what does that mean? We want to provide adaptive self-propelled vehicles to district residents for low or no cost for short-term rentals. You might notice the details are a little vague here, and that's because we want the nonprofit partner to develop the program. So one of the reasons why we're putting this out as a grant opportunity is, you know, I'm a subject matter expert in bicycling and micromobility, but I'm not a subject matter expert in paratransit. So we really want a partner who has that expertise and is going to be able to develop an excellent program that is going to meet the needs of the widest possible audience. So we're thinking, you know, we hope to see adult tricycles, tandem or two-person bicycles, hand-powered cycles, and as many other types of adaptive vehicles as our grant awardee thinks are appropriate to offer. So the notice of funding availability for this grant was published in the DC Register 2 weeks ago. The next sort of procedural step is that on Friday, we will publish the request for applications for the grant. And then we will be accepting those applications through October 8th. I'll send an email with all this information so everybody doesn't have to, jot this down. So I'll provide this information. I've proactively reached out and notified stakeholders about this. I've reached out to PSI Family Services, Katie Savage, Washington Area Bicyclists Association, Gearing Up Bikes, MedStar, who has an adaptive bike program, is an outpatient program. But my Rolodex in this sort of adaptive mobility space is limited. Those are all the stakeholders that I'm aware of. So I welcome your ideas. I want to make sure that everybody who would be a good candidate for this grant is aware of the opportunity. So, please, if you have additional ideas of individuals or nonprofits that I should reach out to make aware of this, please do send those our way. I will put my email in the chat right now. So you will all have that, or you can email Caesar about it. So that's basically it. I think if you'd like, I can quickly show you exactly where we want to locate this. Would you like that?
Yes, if you can do that quickly, we are a bit pressed for time.
Yes, indeed. So this is Union Station. The reason why we like Union Station, of course, it has excellent accessibility through a lot of different modes of transit. And then the actual facility itself, you might be familiar with, if you're familiar with the area. It is this sort of interesting glass structure that is actually freestanding and separate from Union Station itself. This is the bike center right here. It is a DDOT owned facility. And this is an old Google Maps photo. You can see there's a bike and roll, bike rental kiosk out front. So that company actually no longer exists. And that's why we now have the space available. And, we're very interested in having another bicycle service there. Any questions I can answer at this time?
Oh, okay, please, let's just open up questioning to the entire group because we are a bit pressed for time.
Yeah.
Any questions? I don't hear any. Well, I have one. Aside from providing you all with this a remote platform and asking us to network, is there anything else we can do to assist you aside from inviting you back for further updates?
Nothing I can think of right now.
Let me ask you one further quick question. Are there any comparable municipalities which have a functioning program that you can briefly describe to us its successes or failures?
Yes, we looked at several peer cities that have comparable programs. Portland, Oregon has got a fairly successful one. Detroit, Michigan, Lincoln, Nebraska, of all places, seems to have a good one. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Most of them, their adaptive bike program out of a retail bike shop, like a bicycle repair store. That's certainly the case in Portland, Oregon. That's the only one I visited in person. So they had sort of mechanics on hand. We don't have that kind of a partnership, but we think that we can get, a great nonprofit in there who's going to be able to, maintain the vehicles and also like provide fitting and training. We expect people to take advantage of this who have not done adaptive cycling before. So there's going to be an educational component here that we're looking for in a nonprofit partner, that they're going to be able to help people learn how to use these vehicles.
Well, thank you very much. I'm excited about your program, and if you can just keep us up to date Speaking for Heidi, we will put you on the agenda. Anytime you have things which we can do to help you out. And if there are no further questions, let's move on to the final item of.
Mr. Sclover,
Yes.
Rob Dooling has his hand raised.
Oh, sure, Rob.
Yes, I want to make sure that Aaron is aware of Give a Lib Incorporated, that organization was at our MAAC meeting in May, and they were very motivated about finding funding for expanding their DC area cycling clinic for amputees and other bicyclists with mobility disabilities.
Yes, I believe we've tried to reach out to them. I will reach out to them again. I'm fairly sure. Is this Katie Savage's organization?
I believe Katie Savage was the person who was here in May.
Yes. Okay.
Passionate.
That is correct.
Yeah. No, they're great. I will reach out to them again.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
I'll be in touch.
Thanks.
This is Caesar. It seems like we lost Mr. Sclover.
Okay. Okay. Can you hear me, Caesar?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I know what is the next item on the agenda. So if you'd like for me just to go forward, I can move forward.
It is your meeting. Please proceed.
Okay.
I see thumbs up from Rob, and I see a head nod from Helen. So I'm guessing yes.
Okay, let me make this presentation. This is a report, and it's to the MAAC from Buddy Moore and Phil Sclover. The subject is sidewalk extension, and the date September the 7th, 2021. On Friday, September the 3rd, 2021, MAAC Vice Chairperson Phil Sclover and MAAC member Buddy Moore, both visually impaired, traveled to the Georgetown Commercial District of Washington, D.C. by way of public transportation. Our mission was to view and evaluate the sidewalk extension program currently existing within specific areas of Georgetown. The sidewalk extension program was initiated and continues to be maintained by the Georgetown Business Improvement District. During our tour, we observed that one lane of vehicle traffic had been converted into space currently being utilized specifically for dining purposes. It appears as if this is a well thought through creative method of increasing the clientele of dining establishment while simultaneously retaining the sidewalk for foot traffic. We did observe concrete barriers installed to insulate diners from vehicular traffic. And as stated above, the original sidewalk remained for free pedestrian movement. There were also intermittent breaks within the barriers to allow passenger drop-off. There is the question of scooter and bicycle corrals. We observed only one bicycle corral in a 6-block area. We observed no established scooter corrals in the same area. Our recommendation, and this is the recommendation from the two of us, is that bicycles and scooters be restricted from the Georgetown Business District. While our visit was early in the morning, that is 11 o'clock a.m., there was a substantial amount of foot traffic, although the outdoor seating was not in full bloom. It appears this new sidewalk extension program is an achievement for both the restaurant industry, and the general public. However, visiting Georgetown on a weekend during the evening hours could provide an additional assessment of the design. Based upon our observation and interaction with the Georgetown Extension Sidewalk Plan, we believe it is a plus for Georgetown and may indeed be a viable option for other areas of the city. And again, this is a presentation presented by Phil Sklover and Buddy Moore. Is Phil back?
This is Caesar. He is not back. I don't see him in the lobby as well. I am sharing your slide presentations,
Okay.
your picture images. The first image that you see
Yes.
is Phil Sklover standing with a lot of people on the crowd behind
Yes.
them, and a street. It seems like a sidewalk extension turned into a streetery.
That's right.
We
Yes.
also have a picture of the sidewalk extension not being blocked.
Yes.
You can see the barriers on the left and right.
Mm-hmm.
Next picture is again a
Mhm.
sidewalk extension turned into a streetery.
Mhm.
Mr. Sklover having issues with the signage that is badly placed.
That's right.
Since I got the name of the restaurant, I'll get that taken care of.
Okay, great.
If Kimberly's on the line, she can help me.
Okay.
No, she's not. The next picture is again streetery section, sidewalk extension turned into streetery, but in the background you can see a bus stop for the DC circulator,
Yes.
which is doing the final movement for loading and unloading vehicles on the sidewalk extension.
That's right. Yeah.
Next picture is a imagery of that boarding alignment section
Yes.
using the sidewalk extension.
Mhm.
We have located the Georgetown bid has located the truncated domes at the edge of this this boarding alignment to let people with visual disabilities aware that this is an edge for boarding alignment,
Mhm.
similar to the other locations that we have this
Mhm.
floating type bus stop.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I believe
Yeah.
this is the last image of an open space of the sidewalk barriers. You can
Yes.
see the barriers on the left
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and the openness of the space
Mhm.
with the sidewalk extension.
Yep. Thanks, Caesar. Fantastic. Excellent. Any questions that I may be able to answer? Okay.
I believe Helen is trying to say something, but it's really this. It's like distortionate. So
Yes, it
Helen, I do
is.
apologize.
Yeah.
Helen, if you want, I can give you a call
Mhm.
on your phone, and you can. I can relay your question. Is that okay? Just give me yes or no, and I'll give you a call.
Mhm. And if I may, Caesar, I would really recommend anyone to visit Georgetown. It's a great experience to see how this thing operates. And I was really impressed with how well thought out it was and how well it appears to be operating.
I believe I have Helen on the phone. Let me see. Helen, do you have a question? Good. Do you have a,
My question is, I've seen it when it was fully crowded and in use, and it's very hard to walk through there
Okay.
on 2 feet, and for a bike to go through would be impossible.
Yeah.
And the edges at the curb and the street are a little bit. I remember the one that was very uneven, and that was where the curb came up to Wisconsin Avenue.
Okay.
And I remember being very nervous about it. And I mentioned it to my friend,
Okay.
whoever I was with. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how pedestrians are doing getting off the bus and where they're landing, but I hope they're not in the middle of the street. I know they're trying.
No, but
even before these streeteries came up, the sidewalks were always difficult, and they really need to make permanent large sand. Yeah, with the board work over them, it makes the street a lot smoother, or the sidewalk a lot smoother.
Yes.
And I hope they can keep those somehow or other. It's just, rather than waiting for the cement to dry and all that stuff, it seemed like a good idea.
Okay. Yeah. And yeah. Yeah, let me just sort of chime in here. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, unfortunately, Phil and I did not see the crowds that you saw, but the reason I'm somewhat on the fence about scooters and bicycles on the sidewalk within that particular district, I just don't know how the three of them, I mean, that is pedestrians, bicycles, scooters, can occupy that small space. That small amount of sidewalk space. So that was sort of my only concern. But other than that, I think it's a great idea. It seemed to be working quite well. And I just hope that maybe it can be duplicated in other areas of the city.
Mr. Dooling?
Yeah, Rob.
Yes. Hello, buddy.
Hey, Rob.
Yes, hi, buddy. Well, thank you for visiting Georgetown and investigating that. So, Lily, you said there was a letter that you wrote.
No, this is our sort of our presentation before the MAAC, before it goes anywhere. We want the MAAC to hear this first. So this is for the MAAC.
Yes, thank you. Are you able to send me a copy of the letter?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we will have Shana send a copy to all the MAAC members. Yes. Okay.
This is Caesar. I believe Mr. Sklover is back on the line.
Yes.
Yeah, Phil. Okay. Yeah, Phil.
Okay.
Do you have any comments, Phil? I read our letter, and we are now opening up for questions or comments.
I guess not having heard the presentation, and I may be repetitive of Buddy, that generally I was impressed. I think it did provide sufficient non-build out space for metro access vans and other types of vans. And I think overall it is a positive experience in which it would benefit various disabled communities as well as the population itself. I came away like Buddy that this is very workable, and I saw positive changes since I first viewed the build out in April and May. And I think it is worthy of strong consideration for some permanent status. And I gather that the MAAC will be asked to submit their comments in November and December. And I guess that's about it.
Yep. Thanks.
Do we have any comments from the other MAAC members?
Yes, So I would like to see a copy of the letter before I commit. Thank
Sure.
you for taking initiative.
Sure. Yes, Phil, I've mentioned that we will have Shayna send a copy to all MAC members.
Phil, do you
Fine,
want me to read Heidi's comments that she shared with us early today in abstention?
Yeah, Phil?
Excuse me, I missed that from Shayna.
Heidi sent us some comments about your letter that she wanted me to share. Would you like me to read them, or I can just put them in the meeting minutes?
I would like you to read them.
Okay.
Okay.
I know we haven't called to a vote though, because she's saying that if it came to a vote in abstention, she votes against the recommendation. She says that the lack of a scooter corral in a 6-block radius is not unusual. To have a 6-block radius in the middle of town where there is a no scooter zone makes no sense, and there is no enforcement mechanism. She says
Okay.
they are green, climate friendly means of transportation in DC, and she does not see how the sidewalk extension should limit them because they do not have the right to be on the sidewalk. But if she says that if the vote passes, we have not voted, noting,
No.
Mm-hmm.
for the recommendation, we will certainly post the letter.
Okay, fine. Look,
Great.
my intent as chair in asking that this item be agended, it would be solely for an informative, informational purposes. What occurred was that Buddy and I, as individual members, took a trip. We spent about 2 hours walking along Wisconsin and M streets, speaking with some store employees and trying to make an assessment. Our purpose in placing this on the agenda was not as an action item, but was purely as an informational matter, knowing that the issue is going to be surfaced on our agenda in October, November, or December. The Georgetown district is going to ask DOT for permanent approval. And it's my understanding that the MAAC would like to, and hopefully will make comments, which could be positive, it could be negative. And our intent was to basically share with the group, the MAAC members and those other attending, what the perspective was of 2 persons who are interested in this issue. So there will be no motion made at this meeting unless I hear a motion from someone other than Buddy and I.
No.
And I assume that Rob is not making a motion since he wants to read the document.
That's right.
And I don't know if Helen is still on.
Yes, she is.
Okay.
She nodded no.
Okay, it says she doesn't have audio.
Okay.
So does anyone else have any comments?
Mr. Dooling had his hand raised, but he lowered it. I wanted to confirm.
Okay. Any other persons on this platform which to say anything about? Okay. I guess in closing on this issue, I would urge anyone interested to take their own trip down to Georgetown so they can form their own impressions, as did Buddy and I. And I have an open mind. I left
Yeah, Phil, are you there? Phil?
He is still in the meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I don't hear his voice.
I think we have the case of Lord Connectivity.
Okay. Okay.
I think it's traveling from Shayna's computer to Phil's computer.
Okay.
Apologies.
Yeah, Shayna did apologize.
That's okay.
I did remember that her computer crashed. Phil, are you still with us? And there he left.
He's gone.
He
Phil
is
is no
gone.
longer with us.
Nope.
Okay. If there's no further business to come before this body, our meeting is adjourned. I'll take this upon myself to adjourn the meeting.
Hello?
Oh,
Mr. Sklover is back.
I'm sorry. Phil, you're back. Okay.
I'm back.
Okay, go ahead. I was getting ready to adjourn the meeting, Phil, so go ahead.
Okay, can I hear a motion to adjourn this? Hopefully, we can fix the glitches on Zoom for our next session.
I move that the meeting be adjourned.
I don't hear any opposition. The meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
And see you in a month with a new individual, hopefully Heidi as the chair.
Thanks, Phil, for
And I hope we
sharing.
have a more stable platform.
Well, no, it worked out well. Thanks, Phil, for filling in. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, good night. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Mhm.
Alt F4, Zoom meeting, capture Karen has left the meeting. Better Food has left the meeting.
All right.
Okay.
Thomas has left the meeting.
See you, Rob. See everybody later.
Okay.
See you,
See you,
Caesar.
Town.